All right, RJ, the Olympic play-in table is set. We've got the two obvious favorites, shocked that Canada and the US kind of made it through the group stage basically unscarred. What has been the storylines that have really captured you during this Olympic process? Because you and we've been following the Olympics, we've been able to watch some, but we haven't talked to each other at all until right now about anything since the Olympics has started, outside of a few texts just to know when we were going to schedule this conversation.
Yeah, that's about it. So we are totally catching up on all the Olympic stuff. I think one additional text where I was celebrating, taking my victory lap for the Celebrini, McDavid, McKinnon line and how good that looked, the one I suggest. We can get to that a little
Oh
bit
my
later when we
gosh,
talk
three of the
Canada.
top six players in the NHL look really good together.
You
I'm
laughed at
shocked.
me. You laughed at me. You said it was going to be too much of a good thing. Turns out a lot of a good thing is just good.
I was unsure of what the rest of the roster would look like. And again, it's like the group stage. And it is one where I acknowledge, I mean, I don't remember that conversation at all really, but
Oh, I'm sure you don't.
like the speed all makes sense together and everything. But it just, I don't know. Like, is there any combination of this Canadian roster that they could put together and it's gonna be bad? Like, because that's my big takeaway from this whole thing is Canada makes the Olympics so boring.
Yeah, they are. It does look like they're miles better than any other team. And we'll see once USA finally gets them. That's the thing. We don't really know because with this format, it feels like we're getting very few competitive games. Canada hasn't had to face really one of the top teams yet. USA hasn't really had to face one of the top teams yet because of the way this tournament is formatted. So, like, we'll find out if there's a surprise, but no, Canada seems a lot better. That does really track though with one of the Dylan doesn't remember the conversation. Meanwhile, I have made clips of it and posted it on
Yes.
our Instagram story.
Yeah.
But maybe it'd be the other way around if you made a good point where you were right and I was wrong.
Yeah, well, there are plenty of those. I'm sure they're back there. I don't remember those either, by the
Okay, well
way.
that's fair. At least you're treating those equally.
I'm always just looking ahead, and looking ahead to things. I mean, look, we did get a fantastic Group B, right? Like Canada, U.S. They handled their groups as expected. Things there are all kind of solid, but Group B was really interesting with Finland, Slovakia, and Sweden in there, and the way that they all kind of beat each other to set up a tie situation, and then we get the tiebreakers come in everything, and Slovakia emerges as the top seed, Finland then second, then Sweden in third, and it sets up Sweden to what for the play-in round. They're seeded seventh out of everybody, and they have what feels like an impossible task ahead of them just to try to get to a medal that would involve having to go through the US and Canada, I think just to like get to like a medal stage almost.
Yeah, basically. I mean, if you have essentially the because yeah, they're the lowest remaining seed aside from Czechia, and I don't think Czechia is going to beat Canada in the quarterfinal.
No.
Yeah, and it reseeds, so you basically have to go through USA and Canada. That's rough. They put themselves in a really tough spot, and really, it started from the beginning with
Mhm.
Sweden in that game against Italy. I know they figured it out and ended up winning the game, but I mean that was a 2-2 tie game about halfway through. That was a fun kind of start to the Olympics because remember day one, we were just trying to see kind of what teams look good or didn't. I think everyone was expecting Sweden to just roll over Italy, but and they kind of did. Like they outshot them by a
Yeah.
ridiculous margin. But I mean, it was tied for longer than it should have been.
It was. It was. And again, it's one of those, and we talked about this a little bit going into it, right? Looking at the Swedish roster, and I don't know, there's just something about it that didn't just doesn't feel as competitive as Sweden has been in the past, as in past Olympics, or I don't know what it is, but it feels very much, and I'm looking at it again right now. It feels like a lot of guys that NHL wise are fantastic, like number twos on their team, right? But it feels like right now Sweden is missing that one star player, particularly a star forward that just kind of drives everything from them and then kind of seeds everything for the rest of the roster. right? And I guess like right now that guy, at least so far this tournament, has really been Lucas Raymond, but like he's not, it feels like of that kind of next tier caliber guy where it's like, okay, we have this guy, he plays 20 minutes and then everything after that then kind of like figures out its place. Especially because he's also just a winger. I feel like it kind of has to be a center. And that's kind of how I view this Swedish roster is it's a bunch of guys that are either exceptional role players or really great number twos on like an NHL team, but there's no the guy that kind of like then everything can coalesce around and it all figures itself out.
Yeah, and usually they kind of balance it out based on just their cohesiveness, their structure, whatever, but we just haven't seen that with them really from the start. And so then you're left with having to have somebody really dynamic and they just don't. And so that's I think been an issue for them. They also have not been getting the goaltending. And that
Yes.
started at the very start of the tournament. As I mean, the reason Italy was in it on that first goal was Philip Gustafsson just kind of misplays a puck, loses his stick, and turns it over right in front of the net. And I think that just kind of kills your confidence early on in a tournament like that. You took a while for them to really recover. Second Italy goal wasn't his fault. They just completely missed the guy back door. But it doesn't help when you're not getting the extra save you need to get.
It doesn't. And you look at all three goaltenders that they have, and obviously Wallstedt hasn't played this Olympics, but you look at Philip Gustafsson, you look at Jacob Markstrom, and again, all three of them this season in the NHL have had very big swings, good and bad, right? As far as how they've trended. And I think that you're just kind of maybe catching all of them in a moment where they weren't exactly swinging big positive in the, going into this tournament. And I think like you just kind of caught them all during a cold spell. Like none of these guys particularly entered the Olympic break hot from an NHL perspective. Like Gustafsson probably more so than the other two, but certainly Wallstedt did not. Jacob Markstrom's been kind of all over the place this year. He's had injury difficulties that doesn't help things. But yeah, it has been definitely tough for them in net, and which is, you know, and I think it is in net because they have a good decor, right? Like that is I think probably the best part of this team on paper is this D unit that they have where it feels like they can run out guys three pairings deep that are all going to be rock solid and could chew up a ton of minutes if you need them to. So it really does feel like the goaltending itself has been the problem as well as just maybe not a ton of offense up front.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough road ahead. I think they might have a chance against USA, but I don't see them getting past Canada. Like they've already put themselves in too tough of a spot, I think.
Agreed. Agreed. Only one guy on the team with more than one goal. Like that's kind of like I think part of the problem here is just it's great to have the depth scoring and to kind of have everybody contributing, but certainly when you get to elimination stages and you're talking about a sport like hockey where bounces can decide things and you're talking about a single elimination game setup, you need somebody who can go out there and just kind of ensure that your team's going to win. And right now, I just don't think that they have that guy up front who's going to be able to help them overcome any potential bounces or a mistake that they make against a team like Canada or the US. And I think that that's just their problem. Only multiple goal scorer for them. Do you know who it is?
Is it Raymond? No, because he just has a bunch of assists, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's not him.
Uh oh, Pedersen.
It is Elias
Yeah, Pedersen.
Pettersson.
He's actually looked very good in this tournament.
He does, yes. No, I totally agree with that. Which is then crazy that he's still only getting 11 and a half minutes a night. Like, and maybe that's part
Weird
of
in
it
these
is just
tournaments.
he's
Yeah,
getting good
yeah.
matchups, but like, yeah, it's yeah. We'll talk about that when we get to like Canada and the US and deployments because I really want to talk about that, particularly with the US squad. I think it makes sense to talk about Group B just because that has been the closest and really where all the stories have come out of for what has happened. And we can talk about Canada and the US once we get to like kind of more projecting in the future. But that's kind of how Sweden has looked so far. I guess we'll go into Finland next. We'll work our way up to Slovakia, who of course won the group. What have you thought of the Finnish team so far this Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, well, rough start for them, of course,
Mhm.
with the game against Slovakia, basically the first game of the Olympics, just opening it up. And I mean, Slovakia ended up being the biggest surprise on the positive end, but I think the Finns have just been getting better and better as the tournament's gone on. They get the big win against Sweden, and then of course they take care of business in their final game, what 11-0 win, and so getting the goal differential by quite a bit. They look like one of those teams that in any short tournament like this, you're going to have teams that start slow. I mean, we saw it with Sweden. It took them half a
Mhm.
game to figure it out against Italy, really. Finland kind of had a similar slow start. They just weren't lucky enough to face Italy in their first game. But I've actually been fairly impressed by them. They're the team more than any other that looks like it's gotten better as the tournament's gone on.
I agree with that, and it is kind of crazy because at the beginning, I mean, after you look at the first two games, certainly the first game, the if you I don't know if you saw any of the stuff coming out of Finland, like what the Finnish media was talking about, but
No, not really.
there was a ton of stuff about the coach and what a disastrous pick he was, and how they tried to go out there and they tried to get
Oh, the
Paul
Paul Maurice.
Maurice to be the
Yeah.
coach, and he was interested, but Hockey Finland didn't want to go that direction. They wanted him. Then they should have gotten oh, what's his name? He's a member of Paul Maurice's staff, but he is Finnish in Florida. Let me pull up their thing. But then it was that they wanted him. But Hockey Finland, they stuck to their guns, and they kept their coach, who has spent a lot of time working their way up the ladder to get to this point where you'd be the Olympic coach for them. And I think that it has proven that, look, with the Finns, the way that they always traditionally want to play more of a team-based style, and have everybody together like that, I think it makes sense that they would just take a little bit of time to get going.
Yeah, and I think the what worried me after the first game against Slovakia was just that UC Saros didn't look very good.
Mhm.
And if you again in a tournament like this, if you don't get the goaltending, you're screwed. And I think they bounced back from a goaltending perspective, and so that's very important for them. Like Saros just looked so small in that net. I don't. I mean, I know like the smallest goalie. Like, I get that, but usually he plays bigger than he is. Of course, that's like the whole thing about him. Uh, Looked bad in that first game, but he's solidified things.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's that's been part of it, but he's been fantastic. The coach for Finland, by the way, is Antti Pennanen. Um, just to actually give proper credit there. Um, I think he's looked really good this tournament. UC Saros, I think that's been big for them, and I especially think it's big because, unlike Sweden, where they have like a really deep blue line, I feel like Finland is getting by based off of more of a team defensive structure. I mean, they are riding Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell pairing a lot. I think that there's kind of a big drop off as you go through their decor, and you look at everybody there. But you have a forward group that is very, very solid two-way, right? Like, yes, you have some guys that are definitely offensively minded and structured, and they're going to go out there and they're going to get you the goals, all of that kind of stuff. But you also have a ton of guys on this team that are very structured defensively. They can forecheck well, which takes a lot of pressure off of your D. They can handle transition really well, both forward and backwards, right? They can handle things in the defensive zone as well, and back check really strong. And I think that that's kind of coming through for them, as well as just as you get more reps, as that chemistry builds, as you're more and more used to that system and it becomes second nature. All of these guys that, from an NHL perspective, we think of a lot of them as role players. They just get stronger and stronger playing in a more team centric environment than maybe what we would see in the NHL. Right. And I think that's also why a lot of times when you look at Stanley Cup championship teams, you'll see a decent amount of Finns on there, or you'll see Finns who made big impacts during the playoffs run, because I think that NHL playoff hockey lends itself more to a situation like this, where it is a little bit more structured, and the way that these Finns play, that is just their bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I look at the 11-0 win over Italy, and it's easy to kind of just discount that. But in a tournament like this, when goal differential is so important, we haven't seen a whole lot of teams really break away from the bad teams.
Mhm.
The bad teams have kind of kept it close, and so with the goal differential, it's been difficult. Really, it's just been that one, and then the 10-2 Canada win over France. But like those are the only two instances where teams really been able to rack up things from the goal differential. And you talk about Finland, everybody kind of playing structured, good two-way guys, but they are able to rack up a bunch of goals when it does matter.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. They are
Like
definitely
it's gaming the system kind of in the tournament, of course. Like it's not the most impressive thing, but it is important in something like this.
it is, and I think it goes a long way
The
to
reason
me
they're not in
thinking.
Sweden's position.
Right, right. It goes a long way for me to think that even though they ended up finishing second in this group B, I think they probably have the third best odds to win this tournament, right? I like after Canada and the US. I don't know which other team
I'd
is
agree with
better
that.
than this.
Yeah, no, I think they are the third best team in the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And look, they have the skill to get it done. I think the team effort is there, the team structure is there. As long as UC Saros, stays as good as he has been in net. On top of that, I don't see why this should be a problem for them. Like I think they're gonna do what they have to, and they're gonna put themselves in a spot where, yeah, look, you're gonna have to get through Canada or the US. I forget which one it would kind of be based on the
It
reseeding.
depends on how the quarterfinal goes. Like if
Yeah,
all the top seeds win the rest of the way, they face Canada in the semifinal, which is tough.
that sucks. Yeah, if you're them.
So yeah, that's the issue, is that you might have to go through Canada
Yeah.
early.
But, for the most part, it's one of those things where you just go, look, uh, probably to win, you're going to have to get through both of those countries anyway, right? If you want gold. So,
Yeah,
um, you have to go into it with the mindset that they can do it. And I think Finland definitely enters all these games with the mindset that they can win.
for sure. And I mean, again, you have Saros, who's only allowed one goal since that opening game. They've got the goaltending, they've got everything skater wise. Like they can totally do it.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last team from Group B here, RJ, Slovakia, uh, taking a lot of people by surprise. I see lots of stuff that is, people reacting with that surprise. I maybe wasn't that surprised. I mean, look, last Olympics, no NHL players, but Slovakia did very well there. You look at world championships, and sometimes it's a little hit or miss, but I just think of all the years in, world juniors and things of that nature. Slovakia has been a program that has really been developing, and while they haven't necessarily developed a ton of NHL talent, they are one where you look at them and it's kind of similar to the Czechs, where they everybody knows what they're doing when they get together for a national tournament, and they play a really structured team game, and everybody kind of knows what their role is within that team, and they execute on the things that they need to do well, and they limit mistakes that the big countries are going to, take advantage of. I'm not like totally shocked to see that Slovakia was in the spot.
I guess I was still pretty surprised by their opening win over Finland. And I mean, since then, look, they beat Italy 3-2. It was close. And
Yes.
then they had the loss that felt like a win against Sweden in their final
Hmm.
game. I mean, that's a whole other thing we could talk about. But they've looked good to they haven't looked like amazing. They haven't been just
Right.
steamrolling anybody. But I don't think anyone should be surprised by how good they look, or
I,
have actually looked. I mean, the two guys that are really carrying things that I think are worth talking about, of course, Yuri Slavkovsky,
yes.
just going beast mode in this tournament. And I guess that shouldn't be surprised
He
given
did it last
international
time.
tournaments he's been in before. He did it last time, exactly. He has been that good in these moments, and so like I guess we should expect to see that. It's cool also just seeing the strides that he's taken at the NHL level, like with Montreal, becoming such a good defensive player,
Hmm.
but then to see the offensive just takeover that he can still do on something like this. And then the other one for me, Dalibor Dvorsky,
Hmm.
he's looked really good. And I wonder too, like I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to him once the NHL comes back, because he hasn't been putting up huge numbers with the Blues. I know he's only 20 years old, but 10th overall pick. We know he has that talent. I do wonder if he kind of starts to use this as a springboard and take a little bit of a jump scoring wise with St. Louis, especially because like look, they're out of it. They should be giving the younger guys more playing time. I don't have it up right now how much they have been playing him, but like if I'm the Blues watching him doing this, I'm looking to give him a lot of ice time post Olympic break.
What's crazy is he's done this at like every level all the way through. And then, yes, this year, St. Louis, for whatever, Jim Montgomery's just like, yeah, 1430 a night. That's what you get. And I do think that, look, if they move Cairo, if they move Robert Thomas, if there are trades higher up in the lineup, it will definitely create an
There's the
opportunity
spots
for
right
him
there. Yeah.
in St. Louis. But he's one, like, if you followed the AHL last year, you know what this kid can do. He was fantastic at the AHL level. And partly why I'm not surprised to see him doing this at this Olympic tournament is because he was good on the international stage of the junior circuit. Like he was the guy driving the bus for Slovakia back when he was eligible for such things. And so I knew he had this in him. I was super high on him in his draft year. It's really cool to see him doing this at the Olympic level. And I think that one of the things that's interesting about Slovakia and kind of going back to like what I was saying at the beginning is, why I'm not surprised that they're in here. It's not so much that they're like a really good team that, everybody needs to pay attention to or whatever. It's more of that they are really good at playing good countries competitively, right? Like that's the part that doesn't surprise me, that they could jump on Finland in the first game of a tournament and beat them, that they could play really close against Sweden, right? It also leaves open the door for things like the Italy game. Slovakia is really good at forcing other teams to play close. And that's something that I think is really impressive. And I think that that's one of those things when you're talking about, there's the North American teams and they're kind of always feel like they're a step up. And then sometimes the Scandinavian teams feel like they're then like a second tier and then it's kind of everybody else. When you're talking about those other countries, the teams that can force those teams higher up to play close with them, I really take notice of that because I think it's really important. And what I think is really important for Slovakia moving forward, and you highlighted those two players, they don't have a lot of NHL talent, but the NHL talent that is on this team is all young. And this has been something that has been growing for them, has been them trying to develop those top tier NHL talent names. It's been a lot of work for them. They've put a lot of resources into their national team over the last 10 years, and you're starting to see that with these guys. You look at Simon Nemec playing 22 minutes a night for this team, and having 2 assists through the 3 games. This is a country that, you look at what they can do now and how they can play good teams competitive, and you just think about next Olympics or the Olympics after that, and the fact that they're going to start producing more and more NHL talent, and that talent's going to all of a sudden all stack up on these Olympic teams, on these men's teams. We're not just going to see the one-off years where one guy like Dvorsky can just drag them to a really good World Juniors performance. And I think that Slovakia is going to be a country that we'll talk about for the next, decade and a half, just because of what they've been doing with their program and the big strides that they've been taking.
Yeah, I think this, if anything, is even if they go no further than they have now, it's a good stepping stone toward 2030 for them. And I think about too, I know I'm not the first person to bring this up, but Yaroslav Halak back in 2014, right? The famous
Mhm.
quote of, him just being distraught. He's like, look, nobody's coming. That it felt like that was kind of the end of the competitiveness of that Slovak hockey program, and it's just they didn't have young guys in the pipeline, and where is it going? I guess it timed out well for them in the sense that there was not going to be any more best on best Olympic hockey for 12 years.
Yes.
But the young guys are there. They're there, and they're still very young, and they're only going to get better. So it's a great success story for them. Arriving almost, it feels like a little bit early, like someone like Dvorsky, Nemec, just very early 20s. They've got a lot of runway to go.
Yeah, I think they again were able to capitalize on some things. The Swedish roster and the Swedes kind of being all over the place. Finland in the first game of the tournament. Also, it's
The rest of the group went perfectly for them.
yes, everything did kind of work out for them. But the idea that they could be competitive really didn't surprise me, and it's one of those things that I think, yeah, if you follow like the junior international circuit, you would have seen the hints of this going back, the past 5 years or so.
Now, one thing you maybe couldn't have predicted, though, and this is, I think, really ties it all together, is Samuel Halavai, the goalie. I think he deserves a shout out because
Yep.
I love this theme about just these short tournaments, international tournaments, because every time there's one of these tournaments, there is some goalie that nobody's ever heard of that just steals the show and looks amazing. And you go look at where they are on their club team and their numbers there, and you're like, really, he's doing this?
Yeah.
And Latvia is absolutely the guy in this Olympic tournament. 934 save percentage, makes like almost 40 saves right in that first game against Finland. I mean, he stands on his head. You go look at his numbers, see where he's playing. He's playing for the Iowa Wild of the AHL. 884 save percentage. I think that's like the second worst or close to it, right, in the AHL. Not good numbers. And hey, standing on his head in this tournament, stepping up in the big moment. Like it seems to happen to somebody every one of these tournaments, and he's the guy.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that because there's obviously the able to lock in for the tournament. It means something. It's the big moment, national pride on the line, all of that kind of stuff. I also wonder sometimes how much of it is just style of teams in front of them. And we talk about this a lot with goaltenders, the NHL level, and things like that. But it plays all across. Like it's possible, with him or with other guys when we see these kinds of performances, right? Like they're better at the high volume of shots, right? Like give me that high volume, let guys start taking shots from all over the place. It keeps me in the game, right? It allows me to work in and I'm able to get into a rhythm and heat up because that's essentially what this is, right? He's on a heater right now for this tournament. And I do wonder sometimes if it's things like that, right? Being able to play behind just a different structure and the different way things are going to go, right? Certainly in this tournament for him, shot volume has been a big thing. He's been having to face a ton of shots. And I think sometimes that, yeah, it's just kind of some goalies just respond better to that. It's one where it never lasts a really long time. Like at some point, the shot volume does absolutely burn you out. It burns you out a lot quicker. We know that from like NHL goaltenders, right? Look at the stats for some of the goalies on bad NHL teams through the first month and a half of the season, right? They look fantastic, but at some point, that volume just beats you down, and the goals start coming. But in a short tournament like this, if you're one of those guys that responds well to playing either behind the different defensive structure that Slovakia might be running compared to the Iowa Wild, or the shot volume aspect of it. I've always thought that sometimes that is just enough to make that difference for guys. And I think that's why also I've seen people talk about things like this in the past where you'll look at some guys that are at the AHL level goaltenders and they have really bad numbers, but then they'll get promoted to the NHL over somebody else and everybody will be like, well, why did you bring that guy up? And then at the NHL level, they're good. It's because sometimes those AHL teams are just kind of bad, or they know the team internally knows that, look, the structure, the way we play defense down there, it's not what this guy excels at, but we're seeing enough from him individually that we know he'll be more successful somewhere else, kind of thing. So I do want to just throw that out there. It's always really hard to look at AHL goaltending numbers and think about if it'll translate even just to the NHL. And then, yes, certainly for these international tournaments, things can get very different as well.
Yeah, and I guess it goes to a theme too, where you've been saying with a lot of these teams, like it shouldn't surprise you if you've been really paying close attention the last few years. Because with Lava, I mean, he's been a beast at the World Championships
Yeah,
for Slovakia, and something about that format, that tournament, he just excels at.
yeah. And I think it could be the Slovak structure, right? The way they just play the game and everything, you know where to expect those shots from, and that's a lot easier to be a goalie behind when you kind of have that familiarity with the structure in front of you, and you know you can trust it, which is not always the case in the American Hockey League.
That's for sure. I always think about Philip Grubauer going down there for the first time in a long time and just talking about how scrambly it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think another country that's really surprised everybody, RJ, is Switzerland, who is entering this the play-in stage as the highest seed. And I think I've seen a lot of surprise about that and how good this Swiss team can be. And again, it's one of those where I know we haven't had Olympics in a while, but we do have yearly world championships. And the last 2 years at the world championships, Switzerland has taken silver. Like this is a good team.
Yeah, and they have some really good players that are kind of leading the way. I mean, Timo Meyer has stepped up big time for them, but of course, sorry, you've got guys like Roman Yossi on the blue line. Just guys, you can count on Nico Heischer, shutdown center. I mean, I will praise
Yeah.
Nico Heischer every chance I get. Like the NHL talent that they do have is really high end, and if those guys step up, they're golden. And I think again, like 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 with Slovakia, they're also getting the goaltending
Mhm.
from, a non-NHL guy, and that's huge for them too.
Right, right. They're getting the goaltending, which anybody kind of needs. I guess Canada probably doesn't need the goaltending, even though they're getting it right now, and we'll get to them. But it is one of those where it definitely helps if you're, quote unquote, one of the underdogs. But it is one of those things where, yes, you look at the world championship teams and the way that Switzerland has been playing. And again, I'll go back to the structure of it all and the fact that up and down this lineup, you have guys that are, for the non NHLers, you have guys that really understand what their assignments are and they really understand how to be the depth pieces to the NHL players. Right. And I think the Swiss maybe do this better than anybody else as far as understanding everybody has a very specific role and knowing what to do within that role and how that role will accent and help elevate then their NHL talent to go out there and really be put into a position to succeed, because I think that's the big thing with Switzerland is that all as much as we talk about the NHLers that they have, Timo Meyer and what he does, Roman Yossi has really been a big part of the world championship teams and stuff. Like he's kind of the engine that makes all of this go. I think if you removed one player from this team, that could turn them, kind of crash everything that they do, it is Roman Yossi. Kevin Fiala before he got injured, and that is a very significant injury for them. But you look at all of those guys and how they're able to perform in this tournament, and so much of it is them being put in positions where they can really go out there and feast during certain matchups and things of that nature. And the fact that the Swiss group can throw out a bunch of non NHL players who are going to play exceptionally well, do really well against NHL style matchups if they're playing against a bigger country, and then allow those other guys to go out there and feast against the big matchups and try to win that way and outscore teams that way. It's a really interesting strategy. You don't see a lot of countries kind of go that way, where instead of trying to always match their NHL on NHL talent, they're like, look, we'll try to withstand the barrage of, say, Connor McDavid, and then Timo Meyer, you got to go out there and you've got to beat somebody that on an NHL surface you're better than. And that's kind of how this team operates. And it's one that again has been very successful for them for several years now.
Yeah, and I watched their game against Canada too, because that's their one loss, of course. They lose 5-1 to Canada, and the score line doesn't look close. I'm telling you, they played that Canada team a lot closer than the 5-1 score would indicate. That was a close game for a long time. And also I felt like Canada got a lot of the calls in that one too. I mean, there
Mhm.
was a blatant missed high stick where Sam Bennett got Nico Heischer with a high stick, and that would have been, I think, a big momentum kind of turning power play for Switzerland. I mean, their power play, I think, had already converted once in the game already, and it was a close game at that point. Like they played Canada closer than it looked. So I was impressed by that effort from them. They are one of the teams too that I guess they did as well as you would expect, but I think it's just tough being in a group with Canada where you have one of your three games where you have no real chance of winning.
Yeah.
They took care of business in the other two, but it's one of those where I think if they're in Group B, we were just talking about all these Group B teams, they could have been the Slovakia, but of course you're not
Mhm.
winning. You're not winning Group A.
Right, right. No, I totally agree. They could have, yeah, potentially found themselves in a position to, yeah, be you get a buy, right? Like not have to be in the play-in round. Instead, they're the top seed for the play-in, so they at least get that going for them. But yeah, it's one where again, I think there's been lots of eyeball emojis looking at this Swiss team, and again, just go back to last summer, they won silver. Go back to the summer before that, they won silver. Like this is a good program that they have. People should be paying attention to it.
Yeah, a lot of picking up where teams left off, I think.
Yes. They've been in again, it's not like the Olympics hasn't been known, right? Like this has been a date that a lot of these countries have circled on their calendar, and the idea that NHL players could participate in it has been out there and floated around for a while. And so I think what you're also seeing is the ability of some countries to really prep for that in ways that other countries can't. And I think about like Sweden and to some level Finland, where you don't have the insane roster that Canada has, but you have a roster that's going to virtually be all NHL talent, and it's a little bit harder than with those NHL guys to for years leading into the Olympics, get everybody on the same page, start working out with each other, start building that team cohesion of what that team is going to look like, play like, and all of that kind of stuff. Where you look at like this Swiss team, and because it's only a handful of NHLers, and frankly, some of those NHLers have been on bad teams. Like the Swiss team has just been, it's the same team that's been winning silver at the World Championships. Like they know exactly what's going on in a way that, you know, a team Sweden has been far more fractured for international tournaments leading up to this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Now, I mean, looking elsewhere in Group A, I know the big team that we both agree has surprised to the downside is Czechia.
Yeah.
I what do you think is wrong with them? Because I mean, of course, they lose to Canada. Everyone's going to lose to Canada. Make it closer than it probably should be against France, and then
Yeah.
lose the final game to Switzerland. There, they've just looked underwhelming
Mhm.
every game that they've played.
No, I totally agree with that. And you know, outside of Marty Nietzsche's, it feels like even their NHL talent has kind of disappointed. It just kind of feels
Like, I
like
wanted to even get on Pasternak for not looking like as amazing as he should. I know he's a point per game still,
yes.
but like I still feel like he hasn't really taken over in the way that he can.
No, I totally agree with that. I look at some other guys like, you know, Andre Palat, obviously getting older, not the NHLer that he used to be, but 1 assist through 4 games. Like, you know what I mean? Like you kind of need, like we just talked about with the Swiss, right? When you're a country that's going to have 4 or 5 NHL players, like you need those 4 or 5 NHL players to really step up and be the guys, and then the rest of the team can be the depth pieces and the role players that then help those guys be successful. And it just feels like this Czech team has not been doing that at all on either side. Like I don't feel like they've been playing really structured and very cohesive with each other. Like it doesn't feel like that cohesion is there that normally we do see from Czech teams. It just feels like none of that has really been there for them. And then on top of it, you haven't gotten any goaltending, right? Does not
That's been
matter
big.
who's in net, whether it's Vladar or Dostal. Nobody can come up with a save. And I think at the end of the day, if you start, you know, either losing confidence in that goaltending, or when you make a mistake it is absolutely capitalized on, it's that much harder to kind of like regroup and keep going.
Yeah, and in a short tournament like this, that's going to do you in. So much of it just comes down to goaltending. It's why we bring it up with every team that we talk about.
Hmm.
I mean, you could basically look at how good has the goaltending been and get your answer for how a team's done in the tournament so far. It's going to be rough for Czechia. I mean, they face the Canadians now in the quarterfinal. You know, they do get past. I mean, they barely get past Denmark in the
Right.
qualifier game this morning. Now you have to face Canada. Normally, again, I'm used to seeing a Canada Czech matchup, usually World Juniors, and I'm thinking,
Mhm.
oh, this could be surprisingly competitive. Maybe we're looking at an upset. Doesn't feel like there's any chance of that in the Olympics this year.
No, that is one of the reasons why I like the World Juniors more than any other international competition. Is they're all 20 and it's a more limited pool of players, and things can happen. Upsets like that can happen. Um, where a more structured team can maybe beat the all-star team like we saw Czechia do this year, with Canada. It's so much harder to make that happen at the Olympics when you're talking about the best of the best on a team like Canada. And certainly for a team like Czechia, if they're not all on the same page and that structure isn't there and that mistake free hockey isn't there, I mean, that is how you win. And it just really isn't there for them. And even guys like, yeah, Pasta doesn't feel like he's taking over in the way that he potentially could. It just makes it feel like, yeah, the odds are somehow even longer than what you would normally think of.
Yeah, I agree. And then as for the rest, I mean, I want to talk very quickly about France and Italy,
Hmm.
because those are clearly the two teams that were way worse than the rest in this tournament. I'm sorry, I love Team Italy. I love how they played. I love the tournament from them. Whether it was kind of shocking Sweden early on, playing Slovakia close, or even losing 11-0 to Finland. Like they were an entertaining watch for me
Hmm.
throughout the entire tournament. Like I love the way they played because they didn't play scared. They weren't trying to
Yeah.
just kind of go into a shell and, make sure that they didn't get scored on that much or whatever. Like, they were really good in the counterattack. They were way outmatched skill wise, but I just had so much fun watching them. And then, of course, the goaltending, like from Damian Clara, man, he's going to be so good. Like, the Ducks have a really good I mean, that's
Hmm.
why they drafted him in the second round, but man, he looks just about ready. So that's been super fun. Like, love Italy in this tournament. They are the most fun team for me, like surprisingly fun team for me to watch. And I was not expecting that at all. I thought they were just going to get caved in a not fun way. France wasn't as fun. I don't know. I didn't have the same joy watching the French games personally. It was cool seeing Pierre-Edouard Belmar out there. Like,
Hmm.
that was nice. Former Kraken. We had the chance to cover. Seems great guy. He says that this is it for him. He's not going to try and play again in 2030. Gets to go out by he does, I think, score a goal today, right? In the lone goal for France against Germany. So that's a nice story for him. But I don't know. I loved watching Team Italy. I had to mention that.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, and I think that you really nailed it when you said that they weren't playing scared. Like, I think that's a huge thing because that I what have I been talking about through so much of this episode when we've been covering a lot of these countries? It's all about their structure. Try to play mistake free, stick to your structure. Try to put the best players that you have in as good a situation as you can find for them, and then take advantage of that. And Italy was just like, no, we're gonna basically just try to match the energy and the level of the other team, and knowing full well that they're not going to be able to, but it just made the games feel a lot more wide open and a lot more fun. And you know what, when you do play those kinds of back and forth games, it means both sides will make mistakes, right? Like Italy, sure, they made their mistakes, but it meant that they were able to get other countries to make mistakes too, and they were able to capitalize when those moments were there. And so, yes, it did just create a much more fun atmosphere of this kind of back and forth style game, high event games. You like, it's nice to see that when so much of the tournament is teams trying to play structure, trying to play low event. This is how we're going to be the underdogs and upset, or this is how we're going to find our way through this tournament and really make sure we play that team style. That you had Italy just go like the complete opposite direction, where they're like, look, this is our moment to play Olympic hockey. We're going to absolutely go for it.
Yeah, and I'll give you some time to answer this. Like, I'll just come back to maybe at the end of the episode or something, just so you have some time to think about it. But I'll start with my just favorite moment of the tournament so far, and it was that opening goal for Italy against Sweden. Like, that was awesome. Like, to have, I know it was a misplay by Gustafsson, whatever, but to have the host nation, the home team, come out there and score first and just shock everybody, that's been my favorite moment of the tournament. Nothing has really come close to that for me, just because we've seen so many games that weren't even that close.
Right. No, I agree. Um, yeah, I will have to think about that.
And
Which
Luca
moment has
Frigo,
been fun?
hero,
Yeah,
Italian hockey hero forever for that moment. So I'd love to see it.
definitely, definitely. I guess the last team that we could kind of talk about, obviously Italy and France. We knew kind of where they were going to be in this, but Denmark also, right? Long road to get qualified for the Olympics and everything. How did you think the Denmark team looked throughout this tournament? Because they're again a program that's always been kind of on the fringes as being able to, they produce an NHLer here or there, and like World Junior wise, they're sometimes in the tournament, sometimes not, all of that kind of stuff. I thought they had a pretty good showing after the long road that they had to get here.
Yeah, I thought they looked better than their results. And it finally showed up in the final game against Latvia, where they go up 3-0 early, and they just looked like clearly the better team against Latvia. I'm like, how did this Denmark team, how did they not play Germany, I guess, more competitively? I was like, how did they not beat Germany is what I was thinking during that game. I know Germany looks good. I think they are a better team. But with Denmark, like, I'm so impressed by what their little bit of NHL talent can do. Like, the guys underneath them, the depth guys are really good and solid. But man, watching them, you see the difference in the NHL talent versus the others, I think, more than any other team in this tournament,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to Nikolai Ehlers, because you'll be watching Denmark, and I don't know, have all the numbers memorized for the international stuff or whatever, but you'll be watching Denmark, and there's one guy out of the five on the ice that looks twice as fast as everybody else on that team. And you're like, whoa, he's like playing on fast forward. who the heck is this guy? Oh yeah, it's Nikolai Ehlers. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There is nobody else on that team, and usually on their opponents too, because if they're, if they're facing like Germany has been, Latvia, certainly Latvia, like Ehlers is faster than anybody there. Germany, like Draisaitl is amazing, but he's not super fast. Like Stützle is the only guy who's anywhere near that fast on that team. It's really interesting and something to watch. I've also been really impressed by Oscar Fisker Molgaard. Like
Yeah.
he looks like he belongs, and he's definitely stepped up. And
Yep.
that's not just me saying that because we cover the Kraken. Like he's looked really solid with that Danish team. Like anybody who they have, I'll throw Bjorkstrand in there too, who is of NHL caliber. They really do a good job of leaning on them and their talent.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to go the same route that the Swiss team has kind of taken, where it's, let's have the rest of the team really focus on putting those few guys in positions to be successful. They just don't have the same caliber of depth and role players or NHL talent, and they don't have enough of the NHL talent guys, right? Like if this team had the same level of NHL talent that the Swiss do, I think we're talking about this team a lot more, right? And we're talking about them similar to the way that we talk about Switzerland and what they've been able to do on the international stage outside of the Olympics. But for this Danish team, yeah, it just feels like they're just a little tick below on both the NHL side of things, skill side of things, and also with the depth role player stuff. But I think it's encouraging that, you're talking about like an Oscar Fisker Molgaard looks like somebody who can be a big deal for Denmark for a long time and somebody that they can build around. I think that they need to kind of work on just finding like one or two other guys that can kind of be of that caliber, and this team can really take that step forward. I think that's something that they have been trying to do. Like they've really been focusing on this, and I think that they've made a ton of strides, and I like the direction that they're going in with their play style and how they're kind of doing everything. It's just going to be a matter simply of, are they able to develop enough talent over the next 8 years, right, for this to kind of stick for them or not? And that we'll just kind of have to find out.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, they gave the Americans a scare. They really
They
did. I mean,
did.
up 2-1 after the first period. I know, bit of a fluky goal there from center ice for that second one, but like they kept it close for longer than it probably should have been. So that was an entertaining moment in the tournament as well. Just seeing, hey, might they actually get this done?
Yep. Real quick, just so we could actually touch on all the countries. Latvia, I mean, doing what they do. Again, it's like a very structured thing. They try to play other teams close. It's a lot harder in the Olympics than it is yearly World Junior wise, right? Just because you're talking about more veteran players out there that are involved and a deeper talent pool for the bigger countries to pull from. And so the Latvia style is a little bit more difficult to pull off those big upsets at a tournament like the Olympics that it is every year at the World Juniors. But I love the way that they play, and I love how competitive they are, and they go out there and they do play teams surprisingly close, considering there's just not a ton of NHL talent on that roster.
Yeah, and I think they get a win against Germany, and I think that's their first, Olympic win in a long time.
It's a
That's
quality
kind of
win
the
too.
moment. Yeah, no, it is, and I think that's kind of the moment they can probably look back at, assuming they don't pull some crazy upset against Sweden later today. I think that's kind of the moment they can look back at and be proud of in the tournament.
Yep. And then real quick, we'll touch on Germany here because you and I think both thought that, this is a German team that could maybe do a little something in this tournament. And look, they've looked pretty solid through this tournament so far, I'd say. Even if it just feels like Leon Draisaitl and Tim Stützle, driving the bus.
Yeah, it really is the two of them driving the bus. I don't know. I'm feeling a little worse about Germany than I was going into the tournament just because of kind of how reliant they've been on that. And also I just, once things step up difficulty wise, really it was the loss to Latvia that kind of convinced me. I'm like, okay, maybe they're not ready to take that next step as a team where they can upset some of the better teams. They weren't particularly close against the US. I mean, I know they kept it, 1-0 for a while, but like they never really had a chance to actually win that game.
No, I agree with that. I wonder what happens if Grubauer's in net for that one.
Well, no, because I mean, here's the thing: they got good goaltending. They were
They
outshot by
did.
quite a bit
No,
in the
I get
first
that.
period. Like their backup did. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name offhand, but their backup did quite well, I thought.
Franz Rib. And yeah, it's one where I agree that like it felt like they didn't work as hard as they needed to this tournament, right? Like as a team. And again, they're still around. Like it's not like they're out of it yet. But that has been the thing that surprised me. I meant it's like they're solid. They were solid so far in everything in the sense that like I knew they were going to be competitive. I knew that they were going to go out there and do some of the stuff that they have. But yes, they are disappointing in the sense that it feels like they haven't taken that next step to where that they are like a bronze medal candidate team, right? Like they could dark horse to their way to a medal. That is clearly not the case with this squad. And I honestly, I think part of it is because they do lean too heavily on their NHL talent, right? Like the as we talked about with Switzerland, as I mentioned with Denmark, right? It's one thing to lean on those guys and let those guys really drive the bus, but the rest of the team has to then play a structure and in a way where you're trying to play as low event and as close hockey as you can, and then putting those top players that you have in positions to be successful. And I feel like Germany hasn't been doing that. They've just been like, okay, you guys just have to make it happen for the rest of us, right? And I feel like that's been a big difference between this German team versus say the Swiss team.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like, and really, it's so much of it is reliant also on Philip Grubauer and how he's been playing. Like, that's their only path to get anywhere, is just getting, stand on your head type of performance from Philip Grubauer. And if he looks like mortal at all, I think they've got no shot. I mean, what's interesting though is that because they've underachieved, and this is where I was looking at the tournament table and everything, and I'm like, look, you got to get that win against Latvia. And if they did, you move up to 6 points. You're a higher seed than the sixth seed in that qualifier round. But it kind of worked out perfectly for them because you do get the Slovakia matchup in
Mm-hmm.
the quarterfinal because Slovakia overachieved. So I guess it's exactly where you want to be. You don't feel bad, I guess, about leaving those, that opportunity on the table. Otherwise, maybe you get Finland or something, right? And it's a little tougher for you. So I guess it works out. Interesting though, that Slovakia Germany matchup, because before the tournament, if you had asked me, I would say that's upset watch. That's where
Mm-hmm.
you look at Germany to win that game. I don't know. I still can't feel confident picking the upset there. Like, what do you think of that particular matchup for the
I
quarterfinal?
I think that it's going to be really interesting. It's going to feel the most like when you're talking about single elimination hockey, where like a call here, a puck bounce there might end up making the difference. Because Slovakia is the much more structured team. I feel like it's the much deeper team than Germany, but like gonna take Leon Draisaitl in an elimination game and say like, yeah, you're gonna lose to Slovakia. Like all it takes is him to score 2 goals and set up Stutzla for a third, and I feel like that might be too much for Slovakia to overcome,
Yeah,
especially
with
with
Grubauer in
Grubauer
net.
playing in it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think either way, it's going to be close game, probably 1 goal game. Overtime wouldn't surprise me.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And then now for the two big dogs in all of this, RJ, the U.S. and Canada. Could start with Team USA. We'll just work our way up to the top
Yeah.
seed. What have you thought about the US team? Because for me, and this is going to sound crazy considering everything they've done, most disappointing team in the tournament so far.
Damn, you beat me to it.
Well, but I
They've looked underwhelming.
they completely have like, and I don't think like this is even just us. Like I don't think like this is like a should be like a shocking headlining grab like clickbaity thing that we're doing. They just genuinely look really underwhelming, and so much of it for me is the player decision choices, like what like how this lineup is structured, who's getting the minutes, and kind of the things that they're deciding to lean into as a team. I really don't think it's the direction that they should be going in, right? To really go all in on the Kachuk brothers and all of that kind of stuff. Like I feel like that works much better in like an NHL Four Nations face-off type structure than it does at the Olympics. But yeah, for me, so much of it is the player personnel decisions and the deployment. Matthew Kachuk is getting deployed more than Austin Matthews, right? Like And I know Austin Matthews has gotten a little banged up during this tournament, but you're talking about Matthew Tkachuk is your second most used forward behind Jack Eichel. Like, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but like that doesn't feel right. Like, that doesn't feel like what you should be doing. And maybe it's just because, through the group stage, it doesn't really matter. You're going to win your games anyway. But so much of what this team has been doing has just really raised eyebrows for me. I feel like the misuse of Kyle Connor to the point where he's just benched now, right? Like, I just don't
Here's
get it.
here's the
I know
thing.
he's
I don't
played
I
bad.
I actually wouldn't say it's misuse. Like I'm sorry, he's been a passenger
I
through the
know
games that
he's
he has played.
right,
Like
but
he has not looked good.
I know, but how much of that is because he's just being put in weird different situations, right? Like, they're asking him to be a fourth liner and he's just not built for that.
I guess. That's what's ironic about this team is they've gone with away from the skilled guys as fourth liner types thing. Like that's why Jason Robertson's not on this team.
Yes.
But then you're having Kyle Connor play that way. So I'm with you as far as like that element of the misuse. That
Jack
said,
Hughes is
like
getting 12 minutes a night. Jack Hughes,
yeah.
like why?
Well, here's the thing, and I think USA has taken a big gamble. And look, if I'm going to play devil's advocate and defend them, I'll say that we don't know how it's going to turn out yet
It's
because
true.
the real test hasn't really happened. The gamble that Team USA has made is that this is going to be a two-team tournament. That USA and Canada are going to be so much better than the rest of the field that it literally does not matter all of your other games except for the gold medal game, which you're guaranteed to get to, and you're guaranteed to face Canada. That's the gamble that they've made. And so they've picked a roster, I think, that they feel is handpicked to beat Canada. That is the one matchup on the entire schedule they're looking at. Now, what they've sacrificed by making that gamble is play and results in the group stage where you have Germany, Denmark, Latvia, and credit to the US. Like, look, they beat all three of those countries.
Yes, they won the games they were supposed to win.
They won the games they're supposed to win. It didn't look like super fantastic, but they won the games. And I figured like that's maybe the sacrifice. Now, here's where I could see it blowing up in their face. Because they won those games, but they didn't win them in like big enough blowouts, you finish as the 2 seed. Canada's the 1 seed. And as a result, because there is, an upset somewhere else in the tournament, which I think you have to think that's a possibility somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Where Sweden falls, there's some country that falls. Now you're going to have to play Sweden in the quarterfinal. And if you are not on your A game, Sweden is capable of beating you. At some point, they're capable of beating you. Now, USA might cruise past Sweden. Sweden could continue to have their problems, and USA cruises the gold medal game. And then we'll see the real test of, okay, is this roster good enough to beat Canada? Is the specific way they've built this the right way to win the one game they really need to win? And it could be right. Like, they could match up well and all that sort of thing. But I could see it just as easily where because you're a less skilled team, because you've built your roster this way, because you've deployed things this way, you could be out in the quarterfinals. That's the gamble that they've taken. We'll see whether it pays off.
Right. Well, and also as the second seed, you might have you're going to probably over Canada have the tougher semifinal.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Because it reseeds after the semifinal. You're going to have well, maybe again, if Slovakia and Finland both win, I think you're going to have, the easier of the semifinals.
Yeah, true. That is the one thing that you hope for. But if Germany upsets Slovakia, you're talking about a path that is Sweden, Finland, and then Canada in the gold medal game. We knew that this was the identity that Team USA wanted to go for back when they announced the roster. We talked about it. So much of it feels like through these group stage games that the idea is we have that like top unit and it's the Tkachuk brothers and they're going to go out there and they're going to play that game and we're going to like muscle guys up and whatever. And then it's like, Tage Thompson centering the fourth line is just going to like, make sure that like feast on these matchups. And we're going to have these skilled guys in the bottom 6 feasting on matchups. The problem is like, it doesn't feel like those guys are feasting nearly as much as they should because they're just not out there. Jack Hughes has 3 points in 3 games, but he's only getting 12 minutes a night. And I can't help but to think that by the time you do finally get to that Canada game, right, that you're crafting this roster for, Canada's going to be able to match you down there. And I think that you're going to need the guys that you're giving 16 minutes a night to actually step up and be able to perform against Canada's top six. And I don't think that this top six that you're forcing is going to necessarily be able to do that. Like I
Yeah.
just I don't think they are, because you know what? They're not right now. Like Matt Boldy's getting a ton of time, and he's just kind of looked like okay, like they just using him like a power forward. Like, is this the best use of Matt Boldy and all of the things that you have available to you? Right? Like Kyle Connor could be up there in the top six instead, just scoring goals, being a one-timer machine, and you end up the top seed because you have the goal differential. Right? Like I don't know. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, this whole team and just the way they deploy things is weird to me. But again, the explanation I could come up with is that
No, I agree with you.
it's not for this.
I know it
Like, it,
isn't. But I'm saying right now, looking ahead, right? This team and the way this team is playing and the deployment that they have against Team Canada, how many times out of 100 does this Team USA win that? Because I think it's around 10.
I would say 20 something.
Yeah, still, it's not as much as it should be.
Right. Because you actually have the potential skill on the roster, just kind of outskill Team Canada,
Yeah.
beat them with speed and with skill. And you can potentially do that. But this US team is not interested in doing that. Like that is the
Mhm.
opposite of the path that Bill Guerin has gone. And so like again, I think Guerin and Sullivan, like they need to own this. Whatever happens,
Yes.
they need to own it. And look, I will be the first to give them a ton of credit if they go on to win gold, because it all matches up against Canada and they
Yep.
kind of, drive them into the slog of a game, and they win 2-1 in overtime or whatever it is, right? If they can actually beat Canada, I will be the first to give them the credit, because I see the vision and I see the gamble that they've made. But man, is it risky.
Yeah.
It is so risky. And on the flip side, if they lose in the quarterfinals or in the semis because they got the number 2 seed, because they didn't rack up enough goals against Germany, Denmark, and Latvia when they totally could have,
Hmm.
they absolutely could have, that's on them too. And I
Right.
think then you need to look at maybe some other people to try and build Team USA the next go around.
Yeah. Does Jack Eichel and the Kachuk brothers slow down the Connor McDavid, Celebrini, Nathan McKinnon line enough for then the rest of the depth of this team? Because that's what we're talking about, and like that's the
Yeah.
idea. That's gonna be the idea, right? Like that line, based on how you've been deploying them so far, and the reason it exists can only exist for the sole purpose of trying to stop that line for Team Canada. Do they get it done?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Right? Like do they limit them? For sure. Like it will be the game in the entire tournament that that line is at its worst. But you know what? It's going to probably still be able to generate a goal or two, and you're going to have all of your efforts into just stopping them, and I don't think you're then generating anything offensively. And I don't think the rest of this team depth-wise is better than the Canadian depth, right? Like the fact that like Sidney Crosby is like this pseudo 2-3C, able to just play shutdown hockey or whatever. Like you tell him to go out there against Jack Hughes, he's gonna win that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and the thing is, I haven't even been impressed by some of the guys that they like, the more controversial guys that they took. Um, to like JT Miller, Vincent Trocek, like those guys have not
Mhm.
done, I don't know if you agree or not, but like those
No, I
guys have
agree.
not done enough in
I,
my eyes to look good. And it's not about these games, but like they've looked kind of brutal at times.
right. Well, that's what I'm saying, because it's all just like weird. Like it's all weird deployment. Like JT Miller is getting more time than Jack Hughes on average. Like they're using him more, right? Like I think Brock Nelson is fitting in all of this really well,
Oh yeah, he's looked great.
right? Like he's looked really good. I think like that's going to be a fun matchup potentially. Like Brock Nelson versus Sidney Crosby could be like a lot of fun. But there's so many guys on this team that seem kind of lost in the style that the team is going for versus just being skilled players. I already mentioned Matt Boldy. He looks that way to me, despite getting a lot of ice time. Dylan Larkin's another one for me that like, what's he really doing out there? Like, what's his job supposed to be? And yet you're giving him over 2 minutes more than Jack Hughes. And again, I'm not a Jack Hughes defender, right? Like I'm more
I know.
critical of Jack Hughes than most people. But you know what? Jack Hughes is a really skilled hockey player. I'm definitely willing to admit that. And if you can give him guys like Matt Boldy and Kyle Connor on his wings, and you make that like your first or second line, that line's putting up goals. That line is scoring. It just is. And you know what? I wouldn't hate a line like that trying to go to toe and match the scoring of Team Canada. You know what I mean? And just kind of do the Italy route, right? Turn it
They could
into a
match the
wide
speed of it.
open
Yeah.
game, play the speed, make it high event, and say that look, it is single elimination hockey. If we get the bounce at the end, we win the game. I can't help but to think that putting, you know, the puck on the stick of your more skilled players is the better strategy more often than not, and this team is just going the other direction. And again, if you're talking playoff NHL hockey, I'm all about this team and this build and this style and everything like that. This is a team that would win a Stanley Cup, right? Give me them all day long in that kind of situation. But we're talking about IIHF officiating, right? We're talking about international rules and all of those things. I'm sorry. I think like Canada's going to be do fine against this.
Yeah, I'm with you. The other thing too, and for the I guess 12th time, because there's 12 teams, I want to bring up goaltending
Yes,
because I think that was USA's chance, right? On paper, their three goalies look a heck of a lot better
for sure.
than Canada's three goalies. I don't think they have that advantage. After watching him in the tournament, I don't think they have that advantage. Connor Hellebuck's looks solid,
He has.
and I think he'll continue to be solid.
I'm waiting to see him kind of get tested a little bit more.
That's the thing. He hasn't really been tested. He gives up that early goal in the first game, and I was thinking, oh man, big game Hellebuck's back. But he's looked pretty solid since. Jeremy Swayman should not see the ice anymore in this tournament.
No.
Rough game against Denmark. And I know there was the whole thing with the boards being a little darker, harder to track the pucks. Hasn't seemed to affect, all the other goalies have done okay. And also then like the point shot goal he let in after, like Swayman he doesn't have it. I think it's unfortunate that you didn't get Ottinger a game just because, especially knowing that, look, you were going to win the games you were going to win. You were going to win all three of your games. That was never a threat.
Should have started all three guys. Just seen how they all did. Yep.
So started all three guys. And the thing is too, the real mistake was in the Denmark game, having Hellebuck back up and not Ottinger, so that if Swayman had a rough game, you couldn't get Ottinger in there. Cause I'm sure, that's what I would have liked to do, but then you can't play Hellebuck knowing you got to play him the next day against Germany. I would have put all three guys in there personally. So now Ottinger, you can't play him now. He's cold, so you can't start him, but it's going to be Hellebuck. He's looked solid. The problem for USA though, is that Canada's got their goaltending. Canada's goaltending looks really good because that was the big question, right? Jordan Binnington, maybe the worst goalie in the NHL this year. Can he step up in the tournament format and look good? He has, certainly has. And then Logan Thompson's looked pretty darn good too. Like Canada's goaltending, give me them over USA's goaltending right now, just watching them through 3 games of this tournament.
It certainly feels like a coin flip in a way that it shouldn't have.
On
right?
paper,
like on paper,
not at all,
it should have never looked like this. But right now, it feels like a coin flip. It is definitely something that feels like more of a worry for Team USA than it otherwise should have been. And I'm definitely with you. All 3 guys should have just started. And I feel this way kind of like about Canada, right? Like just start all 3 guys and see who plays well and who gets hot, right? Like who's looking good behind that group in front of them. Because that's the other thing that you don't know is how are these guys going to look like? What are they going to look like behind these all-star rosters, essentially? Right? Because it changes the calculus of what these guys look and play like as goaltenders. We talked about this earlier. And especially on these 2 teams, you're going to be talking about potentially having to go long periods of time between shots. And then what do those shots look like? Are they only coming after the D makes a mistake in front so that it's a high quality shot? And so you need a goalie who could potentially not face anything for 12 minutes and then face a breakaway, right? Like these are not normal situations for these guys playing in the National Hockey League. You need to kind of see how that kind of goes for them during this tournament. And it it did not go well for Jeremy Swayman, right? At
least you know that if you're USA, you know that you just can't put him in a game again.
Exactly.
You've learned something there.
Exactly. Do you think, last thing for me on Team USA, part of it is also they want to grind things out in the offensive zone down low and then have some of those stud offensive defensemen from the point kind of be the guys to then generate offense once they've established the zone. That's another thing that I'm worried about for them is not going to be sustainable in a game against Canada. I just don't think you'll be able to have a stranglehold on things down low against the Canadian D and really frankly against the Canadian forwards back checking to be able to properly work things up to Quinn Hughes or Zach Rowensky the way that you kind of have been and letting them quarterback things from back there.
Yeah, well, the forwards back checking, that's the key part of it. I think is just the Canadian forwards and how solid they are 200-foot game wise. I mean, I see if you're really trying to work it to the point a lot and get set up down low, like Canada can hit you on some dangerous counterattacks because those forwards are going to be real solid in their D zone. Like that's what worries me about it. I mean, also just how often are you going to be able to get prolonged offensive zone time and cycles against Canada? I don't know. Their defensemen are pretty good at breaking the puck out, so it just feels like one of those types of things where Canada is so much better. I feel like they're going to be spending a time in your zone. And you're going to want guys who are good at the counterattack, good in transition. Your forwards aren't really built for that.
No, they're not. Looking at Team Canada, RJ, shocking that they would be the top seed going into everything after the group stage. Look, it is Canada at the Olympics. It's been a minute, but this is what it looks like, right? They just have, you know, half of the top 10 players in the National Hockey League on their roster at any given time. And they just go out there and they know how to play with each other. They know how to match up guys with play styles and how to identify that quick chemistry. And once they do, that's it. It's just kind of game over.
Yeah, and we haven't really seen them tested. They haven't really played a close game. I mean, they they beat Czechia convincingly. I mean, Czechia hasn't looked good anyway. They beat Switzerland convincingly, and I mean, they just steamroll France to make sure they get that goal differential to be the number one seed. We'll see what a real test actually looks like for them. Probably not in the quarterfinal, but in the semifinal, we'll probably see what a real, maybe not if Germany upsets, maybe we won't see what a real test looks like for them until the gold medal game, but they have no weaknesses. Not a single
Yeah.
one I could think of.
This is the other thing too, is they have been spreading out their ice time and their deployment to make it as even as possible. The amount of guys on this roster whose ice time starts with 15 or 16 minutes is kind of remarkable. And it's not just the forward groups, it's the D core as well. And I think like that's another thing where again they know that they have the depth. They know that their worst players are going to be better than virtually everybody else's. And so they're just not worried about it. And this is also where I think like that USA matchup and the game plan that USA is going for could come back to haunt them. Canada has the luxury of playing Connor McDavid less than 17 minutes a night and still letting him lead the tournament scoring. Right? Like they are just that good. They are that deep. They can just operate that way. And they have so much flexibility. And I think what John Cooper especially has been really good at is he hasn't had to do it during the group stage, but I think we'll see it moving forward whenever they are tested, is moving pieces around, letting the structure allow for creativity and for the guys to go out there and play their individual games with each other and let him adapt to stuff like that. Like let's say that everything is going right for Team USA and that this game is close going into the third period. Tell me John Cooper can't pull out Nathan McKinnon switching from wing to being a centerman for one of these lines and knowing exactly which two guys to stick on his wing and just go out there and you're just like, okay, now deal with a 1 through 3 punch of, McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, right? And the US just wouldn't be able to. And it's one of those things where I feel like John Cooper's the right coach for that, but also the guys on this team are the right group for that. And I think that's where you see some of the selections that they made for this team. It's all about the versatility and their ability to play with many different guys and some of them getting the ice time that they get. Like, Brandon Hagel can play with anybody on this team at any time. You need him to all of a sudden in the gold medal game play 17 minutes and play with Connor McDavid, he can do it. You need him to grind it out on your fourth line and play with Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett and you just put together that group, Brandon Hagel can do it. And I think that's the beauty of the Canadian team is they have those super high-end guys, but then they also bring guys like Tom Wilson, Brandon Hagel, and Seth Jarvis, and these are just guys that are capable of playing up and down the lineup whenever they're needed, and it provides them the flexibility to move things on the fly. And I think that Team USA doesn't have that flexibility, and I don't know that they could deal with that flexibility if it comes up in a big moment.
Yeah, I mean that's why we talked about it last week. I was saying that Canada is the one team that can actually afford to be built this way, where you're choosing guys who can play anywhere, guys who can fit in a bottom six role, guys who are really flexible, and you're not sacrificing on skill.
Mhm.
The US had to make a choice. Do you want to go with the highest skill guys? Excuse me, or do you want to have guys that can kind of be flexible, play in the bottom six, play in different areas? You can only have one or the other. Canada can have both, and they're the only team in this tournament that can have both. And you see what it does. Like, it looks great. Yeah, John Cooper, I think he was absolutely worth mentioning. Best coach in this tournament, I think, by far.
Yeah.
And I like how he's suited things to the stage of the tournament they're at. Like, I love the Celebrini McDavid McKinnon line. I'll try not to bring it up too much because it's just like the one
Go
I
for
wanted
it.
to see.
No,
And it's
I mean,
done
it's been
fantastic.
really fun to look at, like to
Yeah,
watch.
it's been really fun to watch, but I think it's perfectly suited for the group stage of a tournament like this.
Mhm.
And we'll see if they can just go out there and look so much better and faster than maybe say some of the top lines against USA. I'm still not convinced of that as much as I love the line. And if not, then John Cooper is going to change it. But for the group stage of a tournament like this, you let those three go to work and nobody can hang with them, not even close. And they can put up massive numbers of goals that can get you the goal differential, that's going to get you the number one seed and the easiest path to the gold medal game, because like that's what you have to play for in the group stage. That's what the group stage is for. And Cooper has just moved everything exactly right for what the team is doing at that given time. I love the way he's handled this sort of thing.
And no, it's totally true. The other thing is, I also think that he did a really good job, particularly with that line, because those are three really important pieces for this team who have never played in the Olympics before. And so you stick them together and you let them build the confidence through the group stage, right? So that if you do have to break them up later and change things around, you can. But Macklin Celebrini now knows that he can play at the Olympic level. Obviously, everybody should have been able to look at that group and say, like, he's going to be able to do well against these guys. But it is different when it's your first Olympics and you're 19, 20, and you're going into that scenario. We know that from him talking about the whole shootout situation, right? Or the penalty shot situation,
Yeah.
where he didn't know that he didn't have to be the guy to take that. He's sitting there afterwards finding this information out, and he's like, you're telling me we could have had Connor McDavid take this? Instead, I'm out here having to stress about it, right? But I think like that's part of the beauty of what John Cooper's done with the way that he's rolled out this lineup through everything, is because NHL players haven't been at the Olympics so long. As good as this roster looks, most of these guys have never played Olympic hockey before. And there is something we know, just because they always tell us this, about stepping out there on Olympic ice that is different than if you had played World Juniors or even a World Championship or something like that. When it is the Olympics and you have the 5 rings on your jersey, there is something different about that. And I think he's done a really good job of putting all of these young guys, all the guys who haven't experienced the Olympics before, into positions to really succeed and build confidence and learn that, hey, look, this is in a lot of ways like the NHL. I'm a skilled guy there. I could be a skilled guy here. I can play my game. Things don't have to change just because I'm on Olympic ice and it's a best on best tournament. And I think that that's going to be something that's also going to mean a lot for this team when they get, challenged for the first time, whenever that is.
Yeah, and I mean, especially for Macklin Celebrini, like I love the way that
Mhm.
everything has been handled with him. Because for a 19-year-old with Team Canada, where it's gold or bust on Olympic ice,
Right.
who's also the future of your country in a lot of ways internationally, like if it's going to be best on best, like there's no better way to build confidence than by giving him those two line mates in the group stage, putting him against guys where he can just eat and put up a bunch of goals and points. The penalty shot situation, I'm glad you brought that up because that's the ultimate example of it, where not just it's Celebrini because look, he didn't know that anyone on the ice could have taken it. So he goes out there just assuming it has to be him. Totally fine. I get that. But the real brilliance of it is from John Cooper on the
Yep.
bench, because he said the officials went up to him and asked, like, who do you want to take this? And the bench was asking, like, what are we doing? Are we switching it up? Who are we going with? And Cooper just shuts it down immediately, like, no, let him shoot.
Yeah.
And didn't even think twice about it. That's the kind of thing where just to have that confidence and like not even be bothered like, yeah, we got Connor McDavid on the bench. Macklin's going to shoot this one. And to not even like, because I think it was Celebrini that was like made aware of that after the game.
Yes, he was. He
That's
found out about
awesome
it
from
when he's being interviewed, which is incredible.
it's incredible. Like, look, I don't want him knowing that until like after
Yes.
the game. Of course, media is going to tell him whatever. But the fact that that information did not get to Macklin Celebrini until
Mhm.
after the game, brilliant from John Cooper.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you might even have to tell the bench, like, hey guys, just like don't say anything.
Well,
Because I'm sure a lot of the guys knew.
yeah, I mean, some of it was like watching it, like Celebrini all along thinks he has to do it, so he doesn't really come to the bench. Like
Yeah.
he just kind of
Or
does
I'm saying
his
like
circles
after
and
the
he
fact
waits
or whatever,
for
that
it.
just none of the guys,
Yes.
none of his teammates mentioned it to him or
Totally.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't even think that's entirely on Cooper. That's like on the teammates just being
Yeah.
like, look, happy for the kid. Not even worth mentioning.
Right. Well, and this is the other thing with this group is the leadership aspect on the team. And you see this like through them all hanging out, watching the speed skating together, going around and doing stuff. Yes, you've got Mr. No Fun, Nathan McKinnon. Yes, you have Connor McDavid, who arrived at the Olympics before anybody else because he wanted his body to be the most ready it could be for the different time zone and everything. But then you do have the old guys in Brad Marchand, Sidney Crosby, Drew Doughty, guys who have played in all the big moments before. They've won in all the big moments before. And you have them to really be the guys that can set the tone for the rest of the team. And there was a really good Players Tribune article from Connor McDavid talking about going to the Olympics. And he talked about the Four Nation face-off last year and going into overtime against Team USA. And he specifically called out playing with Brad Marchand, Sidney Crosby, and Drew Doughty, and how going into that locker room for overtime, big moment, even Connor McDavid looks around like, okay, what does this mean for us? And they're all literally just acting like it's nothing, right? They're locked in. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they're having fun back there. But he's like, you look over and they're just changing their pads like normal. They're taping their stick like normal. And they're just treating it like it's just any other moment. And being able to see that as somebody who hasn't necessarily been in that situation before because it hasn't been around for Olympics, all of those things, how much that meant to him and allowing him to go out there and then do what he was able to do in overtime and everything. That's huge. And I think having those guys for the Olympics come gold medal game, if they do find themselves in a tough spot against Team USA, tie game, maybe even down one going into the third period, the fact that all those guys like Macklin Celebrini can look over and Sidney Crosby's just going to be taping his stick like it's, any other game and he just treats all games serious is going to be a big deal for them. And I don't think like Team USA has that. And I think that will matter, right? Whether you're up or down, having that kind of leadership in the room that sets the tone for everybody else is huge when you're talking about athletes of this caliber.
Yeah, I mean, look, USA's got cups in the room. They've got guys like Matthew Tkachuk who have done it before, but they don't have just up and down the lineup guys who've had that success internationally, who have been on the biggest stages, and just again the cohesiveness even off the ice of this team. Like Nathan McKinnon, who you mentioned, look, not there to enjoy himself, not there to take it all in, famously, as he said. I think he is enjoying himself. Like, I think that's a big part of it too, is like you see even someone like Nathan McKinnon, you look at some of the pictures off the ice with these guys, he's having a good time.
Yeah.
That says a lot about just the vibes around Canada right now. And I don't know that you could say that about this USA team. Even though they haven't lost a game yet, the vibes feel very different around the team.
They do. They do. Team USA feels like they're trying so hard to create an aura around them. Right. And again, a lot of this is leaning into the Tkachuks and the media leaning into the Tkachuks and the team leading into the Tkachuks and Keith Tkachuks being interviewed every other minute and all of that kind of stuff. And it feels like they're trying to build that like tough guy, exterior. And it's just like, guys, it's the Olympics. Like we know you're most likely getting to the gold medal game. We know all that kind of stuff. And I get that you're trying to do something here, but it just doesn't feel like it's playing. I know there was the big thing going around for Canadian fans of how the two teams enter the arena, and like Canada, all the guys taking the time, they're high-fiving all the kids as they're coming in, right? They're acknowledging the crowd. Team USA's got to enter. Everybody's got the game face on, really serious. Ignore all the kids looking for a high five. Like this is what matters. And it's like, guys, you're going to play Latvia. You know what I mean? Like no
Yep.
disrespect for the Latvian program. Again, incredible in what they're able to do and the competitiveness that they have. But like, come on. You know what I mean? Like it feels like that kind of almost you are insecure about something and you're trying to put on the tough face rather than the guys that feel very confident. Because when you're confident, you don't have to do all of those things. And Team USA is doing all those things right now.
Yeah. Do you think they're a victim of just the way that Olympic coverage generally is around the Americans and nobody else? Because you see this in every sport in the Olympics, summer or winter, every year, right? It's look at a lot of the coverage. It's like Team USA, and then oh yeah, the Olympics and everybody else. But it's all like Team USA. This is the story. We've like handpicked people. Or this is one of the things I like don't love about the Olympics is just that they kind of like it's very, very America centered coverage. And I think like with trying to kind of create that aura or whatever, like I think it's something you probably feel as an American athlete when you go to the Olympics in whatever sport, in whatever year. It feels like they've really bought into that in a way. And I think it's why you see some of the like most hyped up athletes. I mean, you saw it in like figure skating this year, right? The quad god and all, like there's always an athlete or two that are like the big marketed hyped up ones. They're American athletes that ultimately fall short of what they're hoping to do. And I think that could be part of it. I think we're seeing that. It feels rare to see it for hockey because it always feels like the hockey tournament is like separate from all the Olympic other sports with the coverage. But it feels like we're actually seeing that for Team USA this year.
It is a little bit different because it's a team sport versus individual things, right? Like, almost everything else is going to be like a individual based event. So it feels like there's more of that. I have so many thoughts on this. I could go off, and this is partly why I don't like the Olympics as, in addition to the IOC being like ultra corrupt and all of the negative things that comes with it. But one of the things that I don't like about the Olympics is that, for Team USA, coming from a country that has a lot of wealth, has the ability to have these athletes practice all the time, year round for their sports. You watch snowboarding and all the guys talk about the endless winter where they're able to travel all around the world so that they're able to do it year round. Whereas people from other countries aren't able to do that, right? They don't have the same facilities. They don't have the same time commitment that they can pour into this, the same level of coaching, the nationally subsidized programs, all of that kind of stuff. And so already it feels like it creates this environment where the expectation is gold, right? Like it is gold or bust for all of these people every year. And I think partly why it feels like that gets to them maybe, or we notice those failures, is that we notice the 2 or 3 people that don't get it, right? That do fail when gold was the expectation. But you look at the medal count and across the board, right? Like USA is always going to be leading in golds. They're always going to be leading in total medals usually, right? And it becomes not that big. You realize like what a small percentage those failures actually are versus the expectation. And so I think what we've done is very much for the Olympic news cycle, it is built around trying to find those failures, because that's the interesting story, is the person who didn't get it done when they were absolutely supposed to get it done, because that is just the expectation in this country for everything. And I think hockey has always been a little bit different because Team USA is never supposed to win gold, right?
Yeah.
Canada is always supposed to win gold. Team USA is not supposed to win gold. It's one of the few sports where they're not supposed to win, right? Like long distance skiing being another one, right? Like the story there is if Norway doesn't win. USA, it would be a story if they just placed, right? But I think that that's one of the big things with it, is just the expectation around it. And I think that the USA hockey program and this team, and especially everything after the Four Nations face-off last year, they're trying to establish that expectation that they can be the group that wins US's first gold since 1980, right? Like just to drive home the fact that this is not the expectation for the US squad to win. They haven't won in 46 years.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that's one of those things that it can put a lot of pressure, because that 1980 team, of course, iconic, the Miracle on Ice,
yes.
trying to be the next team after that, and just the legendary status that would put on you. I mean, I think I don't know why the NHL comparison came to me with like, the Leafs not having won the cup in so long, but it's like if you can get that done in Toronto and be like the first group to win it, right, in that city in forever, you're going to be immortalized, and so that puts another level of pressure on you.
Right. Now, where I will push back on this idea that you have, RJ, is you telling me the Canadian team doesn't have a bunch of pressure put on them? Like the entirety of the Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver media markets are turned on them, right? And we talk all the time about what they do to the NHL teams. You telling me that they're not putting those same screws to those guys for the Canadian Olympic team, right? Like the moment you have one bad period, that's the story. Because it's again, it's kind of flipped, right? The expectation for Canada is gold, and it's not, and it's like gold without anything ever being even close, right? If you do let the gold medal game against the U.S. be close, it will be a story. Like there will be people saying like, "Hey, this team, they did falter more than they should have," right?
Yeah.
Just because
or if like you lose a game
by two.
In the group stage or something, they didn't, but if they had, right, and then you still go on and win gold, it's like, well,
yeah, like okay, well, this team is not as good as the teams of yesteryear, right? Like that becomes the thing. And so I agree that the US faces like interesting things, but I do think for like the hockey side of things, like they're one of the few US Olympic athletes that don't have to face the gold expectation. And I think that does exist for Canada. So I don't know that the media side of things really really hurts the US more than than otherwise.
Yeah, well, certainly not than Canada. Again, like I just think it's a case of like how to handle it versus how not to handle it.
I agree with that. And agree. I also think there's something to like, and I think this will change like the next Olympics for Team Canada. Like we talked about that leadership group and we called them out in a positive way. They're not going to be there next time, most likely. Right. And what does a leadership group of Connor McDavid, who's like ultra serious, but also kind of, his own thing, and Mr. No Fun Nathan McKinnon, what does that look like when they have to be the guys, when Crosby is not in the room anymore? Right. Like, what does that look like? It's going to be interesting to see. And it wouldn't surprise me if next Olympics there is a difference there. But yeah, it does feel like I said, it feels like Team USA is like trying too hard to compensate for something. They're putting on the tough guy facade. You don't need to be. You're getting there, right? Like focus on the hockey, focus on doing what you're supposed to do instead of kind of all of the theatrics around it. I think like that is something that could get you into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I agree with the compensate for something. I don't know. I don't think they believe this about the team, of course, but maybe compensating for the fact that you didn't really bring your most skilled roster that you could have.
Yes. Because of the decisions you're making, you're running into situations where like Kyle Connor looks bad because he doesn't really know what he's doing out there.
Well, yeah, and I think like you ask any of the players, like they're not thinking like, yeah, the GM didn't make the right calls. We didn't bring the most talented team they could. They're not thinking that at all, but I think the results are showing them that.
I do too.
So far. And that's where you can feel it.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right, prediction time. Is it the Canada-US gold final? Because I think we both established if that is, we're picking Canada to win.
Yeah, no, I think Canada's got to be the favorite. I mean, we're both taking Canada over the Czechs in the quarterfinal.
Yes.
I think so. Finland, Switzerland. You see an upset?
No, I think Finland's gonna win that.
Yeah, I think Finland will take care of business too. Slovakia, Germany.
Again, I see the path for Germany to do that.
I
don't think they will, but I see it. I think it's gonna be close.
Okay, I'll still go Slovakia. I just haven't been impressed by the Germans. And then, I mean, Sweden, Latvia. I imagine we both think Sweden's going to take care of business, get that one done.
Yeah, I do.
So then that would be USA, Sweden.
I think the US wins that.
You think so?
I do. Yeah, I don't in some ways, because of everything that they're doing this whole time, and because I don't like the whole vibe they're going for and everything, like I kind of want the US team to lose that one, but I don't think it's going to be
way closer than it should be. Yeah.
I just think if Sweden was firing on all cylinders, I think that, yeah, that has upset potential, but Sweden looks like they have just as many problems right now.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get a save. That's the thing. I think goaltending's gonna let them down. So anyway, if that's the case, then we got all the winners, and it's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, assuming you pick Slovakia. Canada, Finland,
Canada.
And then
it's a shame that we don't get USA, Finland, because that I think Finland could do.
I think so too. Yeah, and so I mean that's the thing. If the German upset happens, USA is going to be tested, and then USA, Slovakia. I still think USA takes care of that.
Yep.
And then we get to the gold medal game, and it's Canada, USA. I think we both at this point would have Canada over USA, but we'll see, after the round they'll get there. We'll of course have another podcast out after the gold medal game where we'll talk about everything that has happened. In that case, for bronze, Slovakia, Finland, I figure Finland just takes their business.
Yeah. Most medals in recent hockey time has been Finland. Counting the NHLers and the non-NHLer years. It's kind of how they get around Canada a little bit there. Yeah. But again,
like any Finland, metric that puts Finland on top is going to be good.
Yeah. But it's worth mentioning. It really is one where it's all going to come down to, can they, does Team USA get under Canada's skin, throw them off their game? And I just don't think the way Canada's operating right now, and the people that they have in the room, and the guy they have behind the bench, that's even possible. That's why I just think the whole strategy is kind of flawed from the beginning. Who's going to throw Sidney Crosby off his game? Nobody has ever been able to really do that. What makes you think
I think the only thing that could actually legitimately scare Canada is if you looked every bit as dominant coming into that game as they did.
Right.
That might scare them. But they've chosen a path that means that they're not going to.
Yeah. Here's the question I have for you about the gold medal game. Almost more interesting to me than even who's going to win it. Does Brad Marchand play in that game? Because he's only played one game so far through the group stage.
I know.
It makes sense. You don't really need him. But it kind of feels like, again, if Team USA wants to play that style, you put Brad Marchand in for that game. And you know what? I would put my money on Brad Marchand being the guy who comes out on top of that scenario too.
Yeah, clutch goal would not surprise me there for Brad Marchand. I think whatever game winner, if it's close, is going to be a superstar. But Brad Marchand, he's gonna score a big one. I think he's gonna play.
Yeah, he handled it really well last year in the Four Nations face-off. So.
It's going to be so fun. I can't wait. I mean, that is ultimately, as much as I think USA in the way they've handled it, they deserve an upset there earlier on. I still want to see the USA Canada gold medal game. It'd be so exciting.
It will be so much fun. I mean, I remember 2010 was so much fun and everything. And again, I was hoping more for a repeat of that, where it really did feel like just truly best on best between the two countries, and nobody was going for something stylistically or not. It was more so just Team USA riding Ryan Miller there. But yeah, I was kind of hoping for something like that. This will be a little bit different. I guess the one thing is, if Team Canada does pivot and it's they're loading up on the Sam Bennett's, Brad Marchands, all those guys for this game against Team USA, does that create the opening for Team USA? Right? Because Team Canada is trying to meet them in the mud.
Well, and I think they might want to, but the thing is, their depth guys, their gritty guys are also just so darn skilled. Like I said earlier, they just don't have to sacrifice anything.
No, you don't. Right? Again, we're talking about Brad Marchand being the guy, the odd man out most of the time. Poor Canada, they have to rotate in Brad Marchand.
Yeah, I think they're pretty well set.
What a bad problem to have. One last question for me, RJ. It's already long. Has it lived up to the hype of NHL players being back in the Olympics for you? Has it made the difference, and has that lived up to it? Because I know that's been the question forever now, is just, okay, everybody's wanted the NHL players back in the Olympics. Do you feel like it's all been worth it?
That's a really good question. And I'm sorry to close it on this, but for me, no. So far, no. And I think that's down to the tournament format, because they've had, the groups where, again, it's just a lot of not really competitive hockey games. Canada hasn't been tested. US hasn't really been tested. We haven't really seen games that are all that competitive, that are not Latvia, Germany, or kind of further down or whatever. And those are fun, but we haven't seen the top countries really go at it against each other yet. Now that'll change with USA, Sweden probably in the quarterfinal, but with this tournament format, it really, I think, takes a lot of the interest and the intrigue out of the group stage. Also, the fact that nobody is eliminated after that, you're not even seeing teams playing for their lives. Every team is going to make it through to the play-in round. I'm sorry, it's just not that interesting to me so far. Now, again, a great semifinals, that's where the real potential for it to get interesting is. Yeah. If you have a really good, close, competitive semifinal and a great gold medal game, then yes, it'll be worth it. But so far, just the tournament format does not work for me.
It doesn't work for me either. It creates these scenarios where you do have Canada and the US just run roughshod over everybody, and it's not entertaining at all. right? Like
Yeah.
to know that that team's going to win, and you know that they're going to win big, and then they win big. Like what is exciting about that? Nothing. And I think that the moments that will make it worth it are when it's all the, the top teams left and they all have to play each other. Is it gonna feel more worth it because it's the Olympics versus, say, last year with the Four Nations face off? For me, no. But again, I'm an Olympics hater, so feel free to take that. I am coming at it with maybe some bias. I've been excited for all the people, all the new hockey fans, because if you come in the last 15 years as an NHL fan, this is the first Olympics you're watching with NHL players there. And I'm really excited for all of them that they get to see it and what it looks like, and cheer for the guys that, are from their team, or cheers for the guys that they like, all of that kind of stuff. I'm really, really happy for them. But I can't help but notice that those are the fans that by far and away seem the most engaged. It's the fans who've never seen this before feel the most engaged. And again, that will change when things like get there. Like I think there's a lot of people like us that are just, okay, get us to like the semifinals, right? Because that's when things actually get interesting. But yeah, for me, it's one of those things where this is why, going all the way back, I say give me a tournament like the World Juniors where upsets can happen because they're young and they make mistakes and all of that kind of stuff. Hard work can beat talent. The Olympics just isn't really that. It's just not. You do get the occasional big upsets every so often, but again, it happens so infrequently that we have to constantly relive one that happened 46 years ago.
Yeah.
Not to take
And I
anything
mean,
away from them, guys. Legitimate upset, like very legitimate. They did it.
oh yeah.
But again, that was 46 years ago, and that's still the thing that like we're just completely riding on for like the special Olympic moment. It's that, and it's Sidney Crosby, I guess in 2010 scoring the golden goal for Canadians. It's kind of like their last big moment. I feel like the tournament just doesn't produce enough of those kinds of historic feeling things for me that it makes it like, yeah, I'm down with the condensed NHL scheduling and everything else that kind of goes on to make this happen.
Yeah, and I mean that's the key is also like often in past tournaments like this, I remember going back to like 2002, and you'll in the group stage you'll usually see some like really cool upset somewhere, and maybe it doesn't matter the rest of the tournament, but like the Latvians putting on some great defensive performance and pulling off the upset, or Belarus pulling off an upset. You will see that sometimes. Didn't really have that moment this year.
No.
Like Slovakia over Finland is maybe the closest that you get.
Right.
So
It's true.
That's just one difference.
It is true. Yeah. So it's been.
I do want to end on one like some positivity though.
Yeah.
Because one thing I love the uniforms. Like aesthetically, it looks so good. So many of these teams just knocked it out of the park with their jerseys and with the uniforms. And then also, again, I just love like the stuff on the boards, without all the cluttered board ads and everything, just the Olympics thing, which they had to change to make it lighter so the goalies could track the puck better. Good change in that mid-tournament.
Very good change.
But as a viewer, it just looks beautiful. So to end on some positivity there.
Yeah. And the rink hasn't been a problem, thankfully, either.
No, it hasn't.
Right? Like
as much as we were wondering,
coming into this, not an issue so far.
Yeah. Have we seen the locker rooms yet?
Yeah, we've seen some stuff. Like
okay.
Have you seen the like, player of the game item for the Swiss?
No.
It's a giant Swiss Army knife.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really cool.
That's really cool.
It's really cool to see them like holding that, like Roman Yossi's holding it. And it's like you got to use like two hands. It's very large.
There you go.
So
if you're gonna do it oversized, you got to really do it.
You have to go for it if you're going for it. And so they've been doing that. I like that aspect of everything, right? Like I like seeing the non, big four countries and the fun vibes that they can create and the fun that they can have and all of that kind of stuff around. That stuff is all really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. So there's been a lot of fun to it for sure. And I'm sure more fun to come as we'll talk to you all next time after the gold medal game. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of storylines to cover after that one.
Yep.